Alrighty, here we go. My name is Travis Neville. This is the Travis Neville Podcast. I had a great conversation yesterday with Adam Allred, long form about how to get through divorce and get back into dating. He's got a great story, super guy, really enjoys company. We joked that we would have beer together after the show. Just a lot of alignment. We're similar guys, and that's a cool thing. Anyway, you guys will get a lot out of him if you're not following him. He really is publishing the same kind of information I am. We've got a lot of ideas that align, so check him out. Adam Allred, he's over on Instagram for sure and TikTok. Anyway, hope that in some way this conversation helps you to get your shit together. These crazy wintertime trips. Last spring we got on kayaks and did this river, and middle of nowhere. We're using Onyx, this hunt app, to be able to just see where we are. There's no houses, there's nothing, and it's 18 degrees outside, and we're sleeping out there, and it's cool to see the nature, no doubt about that. But there's always that little discomfort of, I could die here, like I could die, and I like it for just like I said, the test of, let's get uncomfortable. Let's try something new. Let's do some cool stuff. But, this year when he invited me on the trip, I had been working outside in this little garage job. And I'm like, man, that sounds terrible. I don't want to do it. Excuse me. So I didn't go this year, but it is what it is. Meanwhile, you could probably ride your motorcycle at 50 degrees.
No, man, I've been trying to do what you're saying, orient myself towards my suffering in a more constructive manner. So I do some ice baths. I do a face ice bath every single morning, and then I take a cold shower when I'm at the gym. So I just do it as cold as I can get it, which is in the wintertime here in Utah. It's pretty shocking. The temperature's not very cold in the summertime, but that's good for me. Kind of orients myself towards the pain. But as far as getting out in the cold, uh, I tuck my tail between my legs. I have a buddy though. It's kind of like what you're saying. One of my best buds. He's just like, dude, you have to own the winter. You can't let the winter own you. So he gets out.
Mm-hmm.
He skis a lot. He does especially. I don't really love skiing and snowboarding. I do it. I don't. We got the best snow on earth here supposedly, and it's fun. It's just, and I'm only 15 minutes from some of the best skiing in the world. So it's like morally I'm obligated to do it, and so I don't, and I feel like I'm not living like righteously because I'm not going out there. But he gets out and does this skinning. I don't know if you've heard of that, where you put on this like cross country skis, but you can go uphill because they have these teeth, these rubber like skins you put on them, so you don't slide backwards. But then when you get to the top of the mountain, you just take them off and you ski down the mountain. And so they get these phenomenal workouts. He goes out to do it for his fitness, but he's outside embracing the cold and out in nature. And I could see myself doing that. That would be kind of more up my alley than just, paying for a ski lift to go up and down.
Yeah, that sounds interesting, man. I just think back to my days as a kid. That was the hardest part, was getting up the hill. I mean, the ride down took nothing, no time at all.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
you're sweating like crazy for,
Uh-huh.
15 seconds of fun. That's how that goes. But I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. I apologize in advance. I'm still kind of coughing up what I had there last week. It was a rough one, man.
I'm sorry,
Also,
bro. What'd you
that's life.
have?
I don't know. A couple of years ago, last time I got sick, I went, my mom, she's like, you got to go to the urgent care. You got, like moms do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I go in there, and they're like, well, we're going to test you for X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, before we get the needles out, is it going to change how you treat me? My treatment options here, what we're going to do. And the lady, the physician's assistant, told me, I mean, there's nothing really we can do. We can't really treat you regardless of what it is. Like, well, then why am I here? What are you testing me for? Why'd I come in here? And so yeah, I don't go in anymore when I get sick. I mean, I'd have to have some pretty severe symptoms, not being able to breathe or something, for me to feel comfortable with that. So yeah, I don't know. Long story short, don't know. Just chest cold, a lot of exhaustion. I was just on my back for a week, man. I was out of the gym for 5 days straight. I don't think I've gone that long. I can't remember the last time, but
Dude, yeah, that's rough,
what?
man. When it puts you out of the gym that long, it's bad.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I
I
never use medicine, man. I never go there unless it's an emergency, which is very, 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 very rare. I don't
yeah.
go. Just how to gouge you, charge you a bunch of money for a bunch of
Oh
stuff
yeah.
you don't.
It's going to
Nine,
hit you 3, 4 months from now. You get some in the mail, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. And then they don't even know what to tell you most of the time, man. Like I go in there and like, oh, there's nothing we can do. We'll just give you some pain relievers or something or
yeah,
some cough medicine. You're like, no, thanks. I'll just not ever use Western medicine for anything except for emergencies.
exactly. I got that nail in my finger and I went in for that, right? I mean, that makes sense. I don't want to lose my hand.
Right.
So things like that, acute injuries, I'll go in, but and even then I'm hesitant. I don't want
Yeah.
to, especially after 2020. I don't trust them, man. I don't trust them. I wish I had better news for myself, but that's how it is.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
So we were talking about maybe rocking out on some dating stuff, man. So I'll open up by asking you. I mean, I'm super interested because I got divorced and and I'm going through the dating thing and I'm looking to, settle down here again. Um, how'd that go for you? I mean, I'm sure you had some ups and downs in there. How long did it take you? Where'd you meet her? Give me the story if you would.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can give you the whole story, and I want to hear your story as well. I think this is, there's so many guys that are in this space or have been in it. It's so relatable nowadays.
Mm,
How do you kind of put yourself back together after you get completely wrecked by a divorce? And people
yeah,
haven't gone through it, they don't understand it, but there's enough people that have gone through it that it resonates with them. You recognize it. It's when you go through a divorce, it's for me, it's the hardest thing by far that I've ever gone through, and I didn't have a good marriage. So that was a horrible marriage. And I wasn't trying to hang on to a relationship
hmm,
with my ex, which helped. So that part wasn't it. It was more I was having this whole existential crisis, this faith crisis that I hadn't been good enough to make it work and that somehow I'd failed God and somehow God had failed me. I had this sort of sense going on. I had this
man,
identity crisis like, you're the dude that doesn't quit and this is your identity and you keep it together and you're a family man and you do it for the kids. You have that identity. You tell people that now you feel like you're a fraud and you're like, dude, I can't make this work anymore. And then you have, financial crisis and that's that alone is enough to recommend. I mean, it's a lot of times everything that I earned that I'd worked for up to that point was taken away in the divorce. I was living in garbage bags. Took my truck, my old beat up truck, and I took a bunch of garbage bags full of clothes, and that's what I left the house with, and went and lived with my grandma in her attic in my grandpa's old office, and the hardest part was the kids. I mean, then you're like, what kind of legacy am I leaving for my children? And what are they
mm,
going to have to deal with? And what demons do they have now? Because, mom and dad weren't strong enough to hold this together. So that was the state that I was in. And I've never experienced depression really in my life until I was in at that point. And had the kids 50% of the time. It was the only thing I fought for in the divorce really was just like that I would have equal custody with the kids. And fortunately, the divorce ended fairly amicably. So I had the kids with me,
good
and
for
I'm
you.
trying to build these businesses, and I'm living in my grandma's attic, like out of garbage bags, trying to get my kids to school. And you
Yeah,
just try to survive, man. You're like, dude, this is it completely destroys you in a lot of ways. And that's not a bad thing. That's what I learned. And ironically, I was reading through that time. I had this back injury from the gym. So to compound everything that was going on, the gym was my therapy. I'd go to
oh
the
yeah,
gym and
for sure.
it at least kind of get me through the day. And then I threw my back out. And so I couldn't go to the gym for like 2 months. I was in so much pain. And I'm reading my scriptures. I like to read the scriptures. I read them every morning. And I was actually happened to just be reading through Job. I was going through the Old Testament. I didn't pick it out. I was just on my way to Job and arrived at it as I'm going through this divorce.
Hmm.
And I'm like, man, I can relate in a much smaller level. Job went through a lot more, but on a level I could relate to that. And there was a lot of stuff there was a lot of comfort and insight that I took from that scripture reading. But one of the things that occurred to me was when I was reading through the scriptures is that God is constantly asking us. I think most religious people, myself, I went through most of my life thinking that if I was righteous enough and if I followed enough rules, that then God would manifest His will to me, and that would be, the crowning achievement of creation is me following God's will. Well, as I was reading the scriptures, it dawned on me more and more how often God is saying, according to our desires. He's kind of putting it back on us. What do you want out of life? You tell me what you want out of this life. I'm not trying to make a whole bunch of robots that just follow commands really carefully. I made you to be authentic. I made you to be unique, and you have this opportunity in life to create whatever you want. And that kind of got through this place of pain that I was in a little bit, where I was like, I have a second half of life. And you know what?
Mm.
I can create something out of that, out of the ashes, right? And when I ultimately when I learned how to lean into the suffering, when I recognized the suffering wasn't going, no matter how hard I asked God to take it away or whatever,
Mm.
that wasn't going to go away. When I finally just embraced it and said, okay, this is my new life, and I've got a mountain to climb still. I got a second half, and I may have a lot of bricks in my backpack from this divorce, but that's not an excuse. That's just going to make me stronger. I'm going to be a better climber, and maybe I'll be slower, but I'm going to climb the mountain anyways. And when I oriented myself that way, and I started looking at those bricks in my backpack, the pain and the suffering and all the things we were just talking about, when I started looking at it, uh, without begrudging it anymore, without being
Mm.
afraid of it anymore, without waking up in the morning, do I have bricks in my backpack? Oh yeah, I feel like shit again. Like I don't want to live. I want to die every second of every day. I want to die. Like those are my bricks. When I stopped hating that and started leaning into it, and been like, dude, there's stuff to learn here, and this is deep into my humanity. Then it was crazy how fast the pain went away. The bricks just started falling out of the backpack. Not entirely. You have damage and you have pain and you have emotional scars and stuff, but I started leaving those bricks on the trail as soon as I started embracing them. As soon as I started like taking pride in them, like this is okay for me to feel this way, then it just kind of started letting up. And it took almost a year to get to that point. It wasn't a quick process. Like I was every single day for almost a year wishing to be dead all day long. Like just,
Oh man, sorry you went through that, bud.
you did too, right? Does this sound relatable to you? Like,
Oh, I mean, it's like I'm looking into a mirror, very frankly. I mean, everything you said. I mean, the whole idea that, we can earn our happiness, that the harder we work, the more disciplined we are, the more we deserve good things. It's a great concept, and I love that for young guys. But you and I know it's just not how the world works. If you want a thing, you just go get it, and that's that.
yep,
Deserves got nothing to do with it. And I was the same way as you were, man, when I left a very dysfunctional marriage. I didn't have children to manage, but certainly wasn't in love anymore and hadn't been for a while. So I didn't miss her. I wasn't like heartbroken, which is its own bag, right, of
yeah,
BS. It really was. You mentioned an existential thing. To me, it was, I'm 35 years old. I mean, what am I doing here? At the same time, I had some other bad luck go through, and my career went away and my neighborhood and lost my home and all the stuff that goes along with divorce and then some other stuff too. So it became, who am I? What am I doing here? I've lost everything I've ever worked for. And just like you said, just like you described, it went from being this incredibly shameful, uncomfortable, hurtful thing to, wait a minute, I can be whatever I want to be. Like it's unbelievably liberating when you start to look at it like that. Well, I got nobody anybody I was ever going to disappoint, I just disappointed them. So I don't have to
yeah,
protect that anymore. Any perfection I was trying to create in my life, that's gone now. So I don't have to worry about that. It's like you're 8-0 as a football team and then you lose one. It's a relief. Okay, you're still an 8-1
yeah. The
football team,
pressure's
right?
off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So now it's, well, what do I want to do? It isn't, what are they telling me to do? What do my parents think I'm supposed to do? What does my ex-wife want me to do? It's, what do I want to do? And for me, that led to a lot of very positive things, like writing these books and starting my businesses. I mean, before that, I was status quo, um, march the march, like go get a job, keep your head down, be a part of a union, like sort of the orthodox thinking. And after all that crap hit the fan, you know what? I'm gonna take some risks here. I'm gonna do some things that could really benefit me, and I've never looked back. I mean, it's been fantastic. I mean, it's coming up on 13 years here since I got divorced, and there are a lot of pieces to it, a lot of things that you know did go poorly, but I can't look back at the younger, dumber me and be mad at him for not knowing the things that
yeah.
older, wiser me now knows, right? You got to go through that stuff. And, I sent you that outline, and there were certainly, you said it took a year for you to get to, I'm going to paraphrase it, say, kind of get your feet under you and feel comfortable again. And there were certainly some times in there for me where, step one was just to take step one. Like I can remember mornings getting up and, all right, I got to put on this sock. That's all I got to do. All right, now I got to put on this other sock. That's all I have to do right now. Like everything got very short. Like my
Yeah.
vision got very short. There was nothing to look forward to. There were no big plans ahead of me. There was nothing to be scared of. There was just dealing with my life. And that's very disorienting. I think a lot of guys get caught in that. I don't know if you got that deep into it.
I did. No, that's you're saying a lot of what resonates with me too. And I think, everybody's journey through pain and suffering is going to be very personal and very unique to them, but it's also
Mm,
universal. Like we're all going through it. Everybody's getting their ass kicked in life at various
mm,
times. And
yeah.
most of us are going to get our asses kicked pretty good because we're hard-headed. And so we compound the entropy that already exists with stupid decision making. And so then just like life gets, infinitely more difficult. But you learn in that uh, to embrace the pain. I did a reel on this just recently. I was talking about my cousin, how he had lived with Buddhist monks when he was he like out in his college age. He went off to the east and lived with these Buddhist monks,
Hmm.
and they didn't resist pain. Their one of their philosophies or theologies was to just observe it. Like pain is pain, and this is a human experience, and okay, this is what it feels like, and it's not a bad thing. We assign these epitaphs to experiences based on how they make us feel, not based on what they create in us, right? So we get
Mm,
stuck in the feeling of it, and we miss the point that it's only through suffering that you really learn anything, and nobody regrets their suffering after the fact. Everybody's like
yeah,
intensely
good point.
grateful, like you learned something from that, you developed. And what you were just saying made me think of a phrase somebody had said to me when I was going through, one of my buddies who was kind of in the weeds with me, trying to help me get through that process. And ultimately, you have to carry your own cross. Nobody can carry it for you. But when you have friends
Hmm.
there cheering you on, it makes a difference. It does make a big difference. And I had good
Hmm.
buddies that showed up, and he said, when you're at rock bottom, that's a great place to start building. And I thought
Mm, it's
that
true.
makes all that sandy stuff, like you were saying, all the people you could have disappointed, all these things we built our identity on is all a sandy
Mm,
foundation. And when that gets ripped away in something like a divorce or something of losing a loved one or whatever, you're at rock bottom. And it's really hard to be at rock bottom, but it's also a really solid place to start putting your life back together.
it is,
And
man.
have to build on all the bullshit that you're building on before. You're liberated, like you said, you're
Mm,
freed from that stuff and freed from
yeah.
caring what other people think about you. Because I felt that acutely too. Like I'm supposed to be an example. I'm the oldest kid in my family. I'm the oldest grandkid out of like 80 grandkids on my grandma's side. Like I'm this dude that everybody's supposed to kind of be the guy that is leading the charge, and here I am, just a mess. And then when that went away, I realized that I really didn't disappoint that many people either. They were all there for me, and they just had my back. And so kind of all the stuff you build up in your head sometimes doesn't really even come true. And we're afraid of ghosts that we make up in our head. And we live in this fear and anxiety of stuff that's just not ever real except in our own head. So
It's true.
anyways, go through that. And yeah, where do we want to pick back up? Yeah, I'm kind of following your lead on this, Travis.
All right. Well, at some point you started to make the transition from, like I was talking about, the sort of feeling sorry for yourself, which you did, I did. It's totally normal. I'm looking back, realizing that to starting to see some glimmer of hope. There was something probably, maybe you don't remember one specific thing or a specific time, but at some point you were like, wait a minute, I'm excited about this. And I'm starting to realize that the smoke's starting to clear. Do you remember anything like that? Sort of any epiphanies that you had where you
Yeah,
started to clear up?
I do. I remember it started clearing up. So I would I would have these therapy sessions at the gym, when I got my back in shape. I would go to the gym and work out. And then I would have these sessions where I would just pour everything out to God in the gym shower, like before I got to work. It's
Okay.
the only way I could get myself together. And I'd sometimes be in there for like an hour, just talking to God. And sometimes, dude, I'm not
Whatever
afraid
it
to, I'm
takes.
not yeah, I'm not too prideful to admit that I'd sometimes just be in there bawling my eyes out, dude. Like, and
Mm.
I'm not a crier. I don't cry over anything, but it's just like you're at such rock bottom. But like I said, when I learned to like embrace that and lean into that, then it really did start lifting. And I had a conversation with God. It was as I was, going through my scripture reading, coming to these epiphanies that God wasn't looking for a robot. He was there with me, but he wasn't going to take away my suffering. And ultimately, that my suffering was mine to do with as I would choose. I could become bitter, or I could and be a victim by it, or I could use this as a catalyst for growth. And I remember having a conversation with God one night, and I was really had the strong epiphany sense that God was listening. A lot of times you're just talking and it's like just talking to the ceiling or whatever, you're
I know
just talking to
exactly what you
yourself.
mean. Yep, I know
But it was
exactly what
one
you
of
mean.
those brilliant moments, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, where
Yep.
it's just God is there. He's present with me. I could feel it. Like it was as tangible, as real as anything I could describe. And so
Hmm.
um, I'm having this conversation with him, and God is saying to me, son, what is it that you want? What do you want? And I'm like, well, I don't want to be I'm kind of going through this thing in my head, my little exercise that God's talking to me. I'm like, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the time to really sort this out in my head. And I was like, well, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. I saw a lot of my buddies going through divorces at the same time, and they were, some of them years later still wrecked by it. And I was like, well, I want to really take advantage. I got second half of life. I really want to make it count. And so I
Mhm.
went through three specific things that I like, this is what I want my second half to look like. And every one of those, I had this just really powerful confirmation from God that, yes, that's good. Yes, that's good. And I went through this. It was like a 3 hour conversation at night, just me under the stars. I was living in my parents' house at this time underneath their balcony, and I'm just talking to God. And, and I finally, after I kind of went over these three things that I wanted, I started thinking about the idea of getting in another relationship. And I didn't want to. There was no desire to. In fact, I was feeling good enough that I was like, the only thing that can screw this up is getting married again. Like, I'm actually starting to feel healthy. I'm putting everything
Oh, excuse me.
together. You know, getting married, I'm not bitter at it anymore. I'm not like, I don't
Yeah.
hate women, but I'm like, dude, no shot I'm ever going to put myself in a position that a woman could have that kind of power over me. Like, I will never do that
Yeah.
again. But
Take
I'm sitting
everything
there having,
again. Yeah.
yeah, never. But I'm having this epiphany with God, and the thought of a marriage and a second half, having a relationship that was really meaningful with somebody came up in my mind. And I said, well, God, if I could get married and if she looked like this, and this, I kind of went through
Yes.
what I thought would be a good match
Sure.
for me, right? Like having some wisdom now and some context I didn't have with my first marriage. Like if it could
Hmm.
be somebody like this and somebody like this and somebody like this, and if I was like this and this, I could get better,
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
yeah, I'd want another one of those. I'd want to take another stab at it, Lord. I want to do it. And it was cool. I had just the strongest confirmation that that's what God wanted me for me too. And it wasn't that he was saying I'm going to do this and it's going to happen. It was just like, yes, son, I want that for you as well. And so that really helped me kind of orient myself. That was a catalyst for my second half, like kind of the kickoff to it. I was healing up to that point. I'd got through a lot of the heavy lifting of it, but it wasn't until I had that real heart-to-heart conversation with God about what I wanted that second half of life to look like that I really felt like I was unfettered to go into that second half and start, really owning it. And this is my time to create whatever I want to create out of it. So that was, to answer your question, that was the moment. Have you had something like that, or what's been your experience?
I had a very specific moment, and actually it was pretty recently, within the last couple of years. I mean, so we're looking at a decade out. I was just sitting down on the couch one day and kind of thinking out loud. I talk to myself. I live by myself, so I talk out loud as if as if somebody's here pretty often. And I was like, well, maybe I don't want to have somebody around. I do kind of like my house. I built this house for myself. I'm enjoying living here, and I shook my head. I'm like, no, no, I don't. I want, I want a partner here. I want a good woman around. That's what I want. That's what I want. And I'm just talking to myself, or at least so I thought. And I heard it as plain as day, as if it was over the PA at Walmart. It said, "Well, then you'll have it," and it was, that's God's voice talking right to me and letting me know. And I mean, I can still hear it in my head like it just happened. And that moment to me was huge. What it did is it allowed me to forgive myself. It allowed me to, and forgiveness is a big key, I think, in order you go, like you said, you go through that and you're not able to make that relationship work. And, a lot of things go bad and you got to start over from dirt. Um, at some point, you got to be able to truly forgive yourself, Adam. You got to be able to go, Yeah, I've made some mistakes, but that doesn't mean that I'm to be thrown on the burn pile here. I'm not right where I want to be. I have screwed some things up. I've done some things right, but we all do. All right. We all make mistakes. And so I'm going to truly give myself grace and say, not only can I forgive myself those mistakes, but once I do that, that's going to allow me to then think maybe I do deserve to have this good, positive thing in my life. I do deserve that. There's nothing I've done that has condemned me from that. And to me, that realization to, is huge. And once I could do that, then I could start to forgive my ex-wife. I could start to forgive
Yeah.
various other people that you've known. That I'm learning that, dude. This is huge in my faith journey. The the better I treat myself, the better I treat the little child inside me, right? Your emotional self, The better I do that, the better I treat other people around me. And it just becomes a habit, man. If I will give myself grace for my mistakes, if I will allow myself to not feel guilty about taking 5 days out of the gym because I'm flat on my back sick and not beat myself up about it, right? If I can treat myself well in that way, then you start thinking that's just how you think now. And so you treat other people in that same way. And I've got to believe that that's going to be more predictive of a good, successful relationship. You treat people well outside of you,
Yeah,
specifically a partner, right? Um, that's been my experience. That was sort of my, you know, epiphany. They keep coming, right? I've been single for a
that was
couple of
brilliant
years
though.
now.
Yeah,
Thanks, man. Yeah,
that's brilliant.
that's what I'm finding. You know, my old man used to tell me that, oh, that dude yelling at you out of his car and road rage. That's not about you. It's got nothing to do with you. It's
About
about
him.
him.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm like, he always said that stuff. I'm like, that's such a cop out. That's horseshit. As I'm in my 20s and 30s, right? But he's absolutely right. He's 100% right. I mean, that
100%.
guy's got a bad relationship at home, or he had a bad day at work, or who knows, man. He just got told he's got, prostate cancer. So you never know. But it isn't me. And as soon as you stop absorbing that, then you stop passing that on to other people, you know?
Yeah, it's something we talk a lot. I talk a lot about. I believe that's I've had those similar profound epiphanies, and exactly what you're talking about. How do you treat yourself has been a journey the second half of my life that I'm really cognitive of that I wasn't my first half, so that I talk to myself like I'm somebody I really care about. Like if I was talking to my kid, how would I talk to them? And I don't shame them when they make mistakes. I don't kick them when they're down. I don't tell them they're a piece of shit.
Yep.
Even more so because if I'm going to show up in any meaningful way, exactly what you're saying is just the gospel to me now, dude. You're preaching the gospel. If I'm going to show up in any effective, meaningful way as a husband or as a father or as a friend or as a business partner or whatever that looks like, I have to be healthy first. And a lot of us miss that. We just kind of like leave, the term you just used, we leave that little boy on the, how did you say that? The fire heap. You leave that child there.
Burn pile,
You
yeah.
don't,
Burn pile.
yeah, you don't take stock of how that kid is doing, which is you. And so I've done a lot of, I've gotten into breath work and I do meditation every morning and I do breath work. It's the way I start my day.
Hmm.
And one of the parts of that meditation breath work is recognizing that this character, this thing that's Adam, isn't really me. There's a much higher consciousness above it. But this is something that I love, this character, this identity that's being created. And as imperfect as it is, right? Like it's not some sort of perfection. It's very, very flawed. But now I look at that character, this Adam that my consciousness is created and creating with a lot more love and forgiveness. I'm like, I see you trying, dude. I'm proud of you. Like I talk to him like he's a kid. Like I talk to him like
Yes.
my own. I try to coach him and encourage him and be
Yep.
like,
Yep.
dude, I love the hustle, man. You really fucked up yesterday, but dude, you
Yeah.
didn't mean to, and I get that, and you're trying to do better. It's okay. Like keep going, bro. Like you're gonna get through this. And if I talk too much about this, it'll kind of catch me to tears. But I had an epiphany one time about that where when I was going through the divorce in the really dark place, I wasn't a great parent. I loved my kids. I showed up for them every day, but I was redlining, man. I was just totally redlining. I'm trying to get kids to school and trying to feed them breakfast and trying to get to work and trying to deal with your own shit and everything else that's going on. And I'm just constantly redlining. I took my boy to school and he said something to me unintentionally. He wasn't being disrespectful. He just something bothered me and I unloaded on him in the car before we got to school. And he was completely innocent. I was out of control, just yelling at him. And when I dropped him off, he gets out and goes into the school and I'm watching him go in and his shoulders are slumped. And I just gave him a whole mess of bricks he's got to carry in his backpack today because his dad just dumped all of his crap on his son. Um, and I was kind of driving away and I had to pull over because I started feeling so emotional about it. And you grow up in a religious upbringing. Oftentimes we're conditioned, we believe that the way to kind of redeem ourselves or purify ourselves or come back into God's good graces or whatever we want to describe that as, we have to kind of flog ourselves and proverbially hate ourselves for a while, and then
Self-flagellation. Yeah.
yeah, we feel that sense of like I got to beat myself up because I've done something wrong, and then maybe after I do that long enough, I pay long enough penance, then God will kind of start talking to me again. And I had that so ingrained in my subconscious from years of religious kind of conditioning that I was going down that path. And it was another one of these really profound spiritual experiences. You tend to find more spiritual experiences in the suffering than not, and so that's yet another benefit of pain.
Better.
Like
You better.
It's
It better be an upside.
that's one for me. That's been one of them. But I remember catching myself because God was like, "Hey, skip that part." I hear this voice in my head, like,
Mm,
just skip that part. You don't have to do that.
yeah.
Just get to the part where you make it better. And I stopped myself and I said, okay, willfully said, I'm not going to shame myself right now. I don't want to carry this with me for the rest of my day. I'm going to stop myself. And what I'm going to do is be really constructive about the rest of this day so that when I pick my son up from school, I can show him how much I love him. And I can take him out to go get his favorite treat. And I can, I'll get emotional.
Oh, dude,
I can
I'm gonna
talk,
give
I
you.
can talk to him. I can talk about this kid that's inside of me that's struggling and tell him like, hey,
Mm,
that wasn't your fault. That's this kid inside of me that's getting his ass kicked and I took it out on you and I'm sorry. I should have never talked to you like that. And I'll never do it again. And I haven't, make that commitment to him. And we had a really cool bonding experience. And I just completely skipped the whole shame part of it. The whole part of beating myself up. I didn't have to go down that. I could just be like, instead, let's make it better. Let's just level up and try and fix things with my boy. And turned out to be like this really cool experience when I got him from school. And we just had a great day together. And it was brilliant. So
good
a lot
for
of
you,
what you're
man.
saying just opens up my heart. It resonates because I know exactly what you're talking about.
And a couple of things. Your son forgave you the moment you did it. First of all. Second, man, it's crazy our co-experiences. So I'm in high school, and I remember my old man coming to pick me up from practice. And I'm obviously young enough where I can't drive. And I come out, get in his truck, and he lights me up. He just started. You're so late. He just lit me up about being late coming out of practice, And I didn't think much of it. I just put my head down and took the ride home, and that was that. And it was 10 years later. He apologized for that one. And I look back now, and I know that during that time window, basically my whole high school years, was when my parents were having trouble. And I know that that was very, very hard on my dad. And after going through the divorce that I did, I understand that now. Understand it like I never could before. And so, yeah, all those ripples and waves, man. If you when you take the time like that to apologize, um, really, I think from a kid's perspective, there's just I'm a good boy or I'm a bad boy when you're little like that, right? And he thought he was a bad boy there for a little bit, and then he told him, "No, you're not, man." And isn't that for sure the best news you can get? I mean, I don't know how far you got in the book I sent you, but there's a chapter in there talking about how what sex does for a relationship. And I list off all these things that you as a man will feel when you make love with your woman. And one of them is forgiven,
Yeah,
valuable, worthwhile, things like that. Um, and it's the same dynamic. It's that same sort of. You mentioned earlier we've talked about men needing validation. And I don't know if that ever fully goes away. The most important people in your life, you do need them to care about. You do need them to like you. You do need them to love you in most situations. And so we never are devoid of that. Um, and it happens just as simple as, my dad calling me when I'm 25 going, "Hey, I just want to let you know, man, I remember this thing happening and it wasn't your fault. This is what I was going through." And that's validation, and we need it, man. It's like turning on a light switch. It's like it's you truly on the inside going, "Well, I'm a good boy." There's nothing I didn't do it. I'm not bad. I'm not wrong. I mean, that's how we
yeah,
operate, right? And at our core, I think that the emotional part kind of never goes away, and you're watching your son very raw, be exactly who you are on the inside. Hey,
yeah. Yeah, that's deep.
that's the coolest thing, and you can keep moving that forward with that forgiveness thing. I mean, we mentioned that earlier. So let's go back into the divorce thing. Excuse me. So at some point you decided you wanted something better for your second half of your life. You said, "Hey, I want to do some cool stuff." And you mentioned really liking the character that you've become. Oh my God, how important is that? I look in the mirror and there's people that don't like me. I really like who I am, man.
Yeah,
I like my hobbies. My hobbies are cool and fun. I like to cut wood and ride my motorcycle and build things and work out. And I love all that stuff. It's really cool. I like that I'm outgoing and I like to joke with people and laugh. And, I'm great at insulting my friends, which is the ultimate compliment among friends, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I like that character. And when I got to the point where I was developing that plan for my second half, that's where it all started. That was the core of it. I really like who I am.
Yeah.
Let's see, what can this guy do? What can this character I've created? How successful can he be? It's like it was almost like a game. Let's see if I can create the character that can go out and make a lot of money and not have a boss. Have a great woman who's nothing but brings positive to your life for the most part. Drive cool cars, take cool trips. This is sort of the avatar I've created for myself. And so that was the core of me getting to that second half. For you, you decided you wanted some things out of your second half. What were they, and sort of what got you jumping off into that?
Well, it's exactly what you're saying. I think ultimately you just summed it up. I had some specifics, and I didn't know how to phrase it at the time when I was having this, kind of these epiphanies of what I wanted my second half to look like. But ultimately, what I realized is that my purpose is between me and God. It's not my purpose with anything or anybody else. And that purpose is to make this character the best, most vibrant, powerful version of it that it can be. Like that is ultimately we're playing a video game or whatever one terms we want to use, that we have this experience of life to go through. And my primary purpose is to make Adam the best Adam can possibly be, the most authentic, best version of himself. And I had some things in that when I was talking to God in that
Dude.
conversation. Like one of the dude, no sweat. If I was hosting it, I promise you it would have been way worse. Dude, I'm so not up on anything tech, dude.
Yeah. So you were talking about brand new shiny Adam, really liking who he's going to be and him moving forward into the world. What did that look like? What were you looking for? What were the markers?
Yeah, no, yeah. So obviously it's a process. It's not like just one singularity event, but it's a lot of these kind of smaller little events that lead to profound changes. And so yeah, I was having this conversation with God, and I didn't recognize, like I said earlier at the time, that it was really my purpose was to make this kid, this thing, the best it could be. But in that conversation in the second half, I wanted to be a really good father. I wanted to make sure that I did everything to make sure my kids had the best chances and opportunities of life, and that this wasn't a setback for them either, but also a catalyst for growth and development for the kids. And so I had these things. I went through several of them, and I come into the dating world, and I actually had one of my buddies was getting a divorce. I hadn't seen him in like 17 years, but he was getting a divorce about the same time I was, and we ran into each other at the gym. He came walking in. I hadn't seen him in forever. Immediately recognized me, recognized me. We started talking, and he's like, "Dude, you got to get on these dating apps." I'd been at this point, I'd been officially divorced for maybe 8 or 9 months, and separated for over a year. So still
Mhm.
pretty fresh. And
Mhm.
I didn't have any desire at all to date. Like I was in this frame of mind. I was really getting healthy with myself and really
Mhm.
embracing this, like create this character into something awesome. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do that in business. I'm going to do that with my family, my kids. I'm going to do that with my friends. I'm just going to live this life that I want to live now and make it the best and most exciting it can be. And so I'm like, bro, dude, I don't need to date, man. I'm good. And peer pressure works. He kept talking me into it, and he finally gets me to get on this dating app called Hinge. So I
Mm.
get on a dating app. I mean, dating apps didn't exist really when I was coming up originally. My first go around with my
Me
marriage, it
neither.
wasn't. Yeah, now they're this the thing, right? It's the tool.
Hmm.
So I'm on this dating app for about maybe 3 or 4 days, and kind of messaging girls. I can't remember exactly how it was formatted, but you match up somehow, and then you send them a message, or they send you one, and that was kind of going on. I had a few girls I was talking to, didn't ask any of them out, and then I ran into this profile picture of this girl. She was just stunningly beautiful. I was like, I cannot believe she's on a dating app. And not only
Hmm.
that, but she's claiming I do door-to-door sales as a career. I built all my businesses
Yeah.
on it. I
Yeah.
did it through college. We talked a little bit about that. She's claiming in her bio, now this is in the summertime. I'm not out in the summer because I own the company now, and I have guys I send out there, and I go visit them during the
Mhm.
summer, but I'm home most of the summer now in my this stage of my career. But she's claiming to be not only a sales rep for Vivint, which is one of is the biggest door-to-door sales company that exists, home security system Vivint. She's claiming also to be a manager. One, I've never met a girl that manages sales teams yet. I had never met one up to that point. And two,
Mhm.
I'm like, why is she on a dating app in Utah? Uh, if she's quote unquote, a door-to-door sales rep for Vivint. So I think she's catfishing. So I sent her just a message like, yeah, kind of like making fun of her a little bit, like just
Mhm.
calling out, yeah, right, you work for Vivint. And then we started this dialogue back and forth, and it turned out that she did, and she has for years. She's actually famous in Utah and a lot of in the in door-to-door sales industry for being
Mhm.
the number one female of all time for knocking doors. I didn't know who she was, even though I'd been in the door-to-door sales industry. I didn't know who she was. And she's back because her dad was passing away from cancer. And so her
Mhm.
brothers, who also worked for Vivint, they had all come back. They didn't know exactly when he was going to die, but they knew it was imminent. And they'd been kind of all just up at their home where they'd grown up in a place called Tremont. And they'd been there for almost 2 weeks now in this just really kind of sad, melancholy, depressed, state where he's sick and not cognitive most of the time, but they're trying to say goodbye and spend as much time with him as they can. And so like Uno reverse, now I feel horrible because I was teasing her about this but she's just lighthearted and funny about it. And anyways, her mom had told her she needed to get out of the house, and so she jumped on a dating app, and her and I just linked. It was just one of those things where the stars matched, linked up, and I didn't ask her out for a while because again, I wasn't even trying to go out with her. I was just messaging her. This girl was just so funny. Like I didn't call her at all. Like we're just text messaging, but I would wake up in the morning, I'd be looking forward to her text, because I
Yeah,
just like
that's a good
it was
thing.
just this conversation that was going on all day, and,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
didn't even want to mess that up. Like I don't want to
Mhm.
go out and then ruin this. We could just do this forever, Like I
Yeah.
just have this,
Yeah.
pen pal or text message pal that I just send messages to, and it's um, but somehow we got to the punchline of going out, and my buddy who's going through divorce, I asked him, I was like, "Who's this girl?" And he's like, "Yeah, she's everybody knows who she is. She's really cool." So I had a like pretty good endorsement from my buddy who knew who she was, and
Goes a long way. Social proof,
goes a
hey?
long way, man. Yeah, so she wasn't some crazy chick or anything like that, or some weirdo. I was so we started dating, and I didn't. Our first date that we went on, she came to my house. She was
Bold move.
30. I was, yeah, or 20. She was 29 at the time, I think. And she'd been dating for a lot. And she knew that like she would rather have her own transportation to be able to leave in case the date didn't
Sure.
work out.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah. Yeah.
understood that. So she's coming here. So she's not like trapped by some dude that's, on some hellish date or whatever. So she drives up, and um, we I can't remember what we did. I asked her if she wanted. Speaking of bikes, I asked her, I was like, "Let's go grab some sushi." I asked her what she wanted. You want sushi or steak or whatever? And she's like, "Sushi sounds great." And I was like, "Do you want to take the truck or the Harley?" And she said the Harley. And I was like, "Wow, this girl is
Winner.
cool."
That's a
First
winner.
date, she's ready to jump on the back
Yeah.
of the Harley with me. Like, okay, like I've never met a girl like this in my life. No insecurities, just completely authentically herself, but not in a
Yeah.
militant way. Just really
Sure.
sweet and cool, and not at all afraid just to be herself. And I'd never been around a girl like that. Certainly not on a date.
It's
And it
very
was like the
difficult to find.
funnest first date I'd ever had because there was no walls up. It was just
Mm.
conversation, and everything was easy and was funny. But I was telling her, I was like, look, I just want you to know, like, we're hanging out dating, or not dating, but we're on a date. I just want you to know, like, I'm not marriage material. Like, I'm never going to get married ever. Like, this is where I was at. Even though I'd had this conversation with God, if I met a girl like this,
Sure.
a year
Sure.
earlier, that would be interested. At this point, I was just like so happy being single and healthy being single that I was like, I wanted to be clear. So the expectations were managed, and I wasn't leading her on or anything like that.
Might have been the
And she's,
best thing you could do for her level of interest in you. You know, what just
I think
human
so.
nature. Women want what people want what they can't have, hey? So you being real genuine about that, I'm sure you're very authentic when you said it, which you told me is the number one most attractive thing in a person, right? Yeah, that probably really helped, believe it or not.
I think you're spot on, and I think also for her it just took the pressure off. Like,
Mm,
oh, this dude's not trying to wife me up. He's not trying to get
hmm.
me in bed. He's not trying to do anything. We're just having a cool experience together, and there's no strings attached. So I think
Hmm.
in that way it helped her also just to be comfortable in that space. And then it is very attractive. I think when especially for women, I honestly think the most attractive thing to a woman, and if you ask women, you'll get a whole bunch of different answers. But what I have observed to be the case often enough that I think it's pretty accurate, is when a woman sees a guy kicking ass at life, it's intensely attractive. When she's not
Yeah.
his purpose is his life. That doesn't mean he's not
Hmm.
treating her with respect or deference. You do that, but
Hmm.
he's in his element. When a girl finds a woman or when a woman finds a man like that, it's intensely attractive to him. And so I think that was part of it. Is like, hey, this guy's not desperate to get into a relationship with me. I wasn't doing this cognitively at the time. I was just being authentic. But looking back on it, to your point, it was like I was just happy being who I was, and I wasn't trying to change anything about that. So she goes home from the first date to her mom and her sisters back at the house, and she tells them she met the guy she's going to marry. So there was
Uh,
two different I've told her I'm not marriage material, and she goes home and
right.
says I found the dude. To your point,
Yeah.
um, and kind of the rest is history. So we just started dating and hanging out, and dude, it is astounding to me having the contrast now between a really unhealthy relationship and a healthy one at how easy it is and how
Mm,
fun it is.
yeah.
And it is, you do work, you got to put in work, and you got to make sure you know each other's love languages, and you make sure they
Mm,
feel like they're a priority, and you want to make sure you're making the time carved out to really be present. And that can all be a lot of work when you're busy and you got a lot of things going on with kids and work and everything else. That work is fun work though. That's like the best
yeah.
kind of work. But the actual
Yeah.
nature of the relationship is so easy. I lost you.
Hang on a second. You still can hear me, right? Hang on a second.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I switched over to this nice HD camera, but I can't figure out how to power it with a cord. So I get about an hour out of the battery, and I got to swap out batteries. But we're good to
Okay,
go. We're
gotcha.
back up and running.
Sweet.
So you meet her, things are going well. Man, I gotta tell you, you're like a golden goose, dude. Where you get on a dating app, the first person you meet, you end up finding a good
The
long-term
wild,
relationship.
wild. Yeah, isn't that wild?
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, where's my camera? Shit. There we go. Okay, there we
We're
go.
back.
Yep,
The
back
force,
in
the
business.
forces of entropy have been against us, but we're fighting the good fight, brother.
Indeed, we are. That reminds me of this job I'm working on. I went out and set trusses. I don't know if you understand that nomenclature, but it's the things that support the roof. Basically, you guys set them with a
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
like a boom lift, right? I set them all, got everything in place. We came back the next day; they'd all blown over. There's a hell of a windstorm that night. What are you gonna do? Just bad luck. So we had to spend the whole next day setting them all back up. This job has just been full of problems, but war mentality, brother. War mentality. You just keep
That's it,
grinding,
man.
and that's it. That's all you can do.
Warrior. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so good for you, man. You met a good one, and on a dating app, no less. Hinge is the only one that I've used, not any recently anyway. I'm not on any the other ones, but I like Hinge because you can get in there and you see somebody, look at their profile, and you can send them a message. So many of the other ones, all you can do is just say yes or no. Um,
Yeah,
Man, I'm an author. I write books. I'd like to think my words have some value. I would like to comment on something and that stand out in that way, right?
right.
So I like it for that reason. But pretty shallow pool here in northern Michigan. I mean, there's not a lot of women, and that's okay, man. I chose that on purpose. I used to live in southeast Michigan, the Metro Detroit area,
Yeah,
and a lot more people there for sure. But there's a lot more people there, right? That was the downside. I didn't want to be around a whole bunch of people anymore. So this is the trade-off. So it is what it is. But good for you, man, that you found somebody and it worked out. And I think that's sort of where we're trying to go when you get out of a divorce. As they say, the best revenge is living well, right? Not that your whole
yeah.
motivation is revenge on your
But
ex-wife, but it's part of it.
yeah, but it is just that. Well, and you've been hitting the drum on this, but it's the idea that, and I really, really believe this now. When people say, "Where have all the good men gone?" or "Where have all the good women gone?" Everybody says it on both sides. Um, I don't. They haven't really gone anywhere. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yes, there may that society has its things, and we're way unhealthy in a lot of ways, but there's still really good men, really good women out there,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. But the question is whether you are. And I think so many people think they are, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
recognize how unhealthy they are where they're at, and not recognizing that like you attract what you are, not what you say you want. And so if you
Mm.
want like some really dynamic relationship with a really amazing person, then you have to be that amazing person. And it starts, and this is interesting to me as well. I think this is not universally true, but I think it is true that when you're not even looking for a relationship, you hear this all the time. It's so often when the relationship kind of finds you, you're like,
Mm.
I'm just in my element, I'm just kicking ass, and then it kind of comes together because you're no longer looking. I think when people feel like they need a relationship, it's a sign that there's some part of them that hasn't healed.
Yeah,
When you're
very
not
much
happy
agree.
with yourself, yeah, when you're not validated, the validation
Hmm.
of your own self isn't enough, and you need some validation of a relationship with a woman to make your life have meaning. That to me is
Yeah.
an indication right there. That's kind of the canary in the mine shaft that you're probably
Mm.
not ready for a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
You're looking for somebody else who's also going to be needy, and not that people don't make those work, but I think there's a reason why a lot of divorces, marriages end in divorce, and then even the ones that don't often aren't that great. I think it's because a lot of people haven't really spent the time to learn to love themselves, haven't spent the time to really figure out what their purpose is in life and what they're doing
Mm.
and what makes them, vibrant and what makes them expansive and what, those things like they're already pursuing those. And now in that state where you don't need anybody, then if you don't meet somebody, it doesn't even matter. Like you're already happy with who you are, right? It's
Yeah.
like
Yep.
you can't lose at that point. So you're just happy in your element, and now you have the opportunity to meet somebody else that is as well, and you can find that a common attraction. And yeah, you'll date a lot, meet a lot of people that aren't healthy. And I was hanging out, I was hanging out. I didn't go on a lot of dates. I went on maybe, honestly, like maybe 2 or 3 dates before I met my wife that were setups. I didn't even want to go on. Buddies were just
Okay.
like, hey,
Yeah.
my wife's friend, I wasn't trying to date, but you're like, okay, I'll go
Yeah.
have dinner with them as a group and we'll go out. So I've been on a couple of dates. Actually, that's not true. I had started kind of dating one girl that my buddy wife set me up with, my business partner, and hung out with her, and she was actually really cool, but it just didn't feel like the right thing. But I was really cognitive going into like social settings with girls that I could immediately pick up stuff that I couldn't pick up the first time around. Like
Yeah.
I'm not interested. You could just tell right
Yep.
away, dude. It was
Yeah.
an
You learn
energy.
to trust your gut. You learn to you get a feeling, and you're like, yep, I know this is not going to go away. Yeah, as much as I want it to, this is what it is. I'm sorry. You're beautiful. You're smart. Whatever, but it ain't gonna work.
It's not going to work, and you just know it. And that's, I think, the
Yep.
sign also of a healthy person is that you don't get embroiled into relationships that aren't good for you because you don't need them. And so you're no
Hmm.
longer from a place of need where I need something to give my life meaning. You can just show up and be like, oh, hey, yeah, exactly. No knock on you. I can just tell this isn't a good fit
Yep.
for me. And
Yeah.
that's liberating too, where you don't have to spend any time like you can date without having any kind of that pressure of trying to find the person. You're just like, I'm just having an experience with another human being. I'm going to take him out to sushi. She gets on the back of my Harley. We're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
talking, and then suddenly we're in dating, and now we're married, and we have a son together, and we're working on
Mhm.
another one. It's crazy.
Congratulations, man. That's the top of the
Thank you.
mountain. Yeah, the I know exactly what you're saying when I do go on a date, which is rare. It's just, hey, I would like to sit in a public place and look at a woman's face and have an exchange, have a conversation, and watch her smile and laugh and see what makes her tick, and um, share whatever she wants to know about me, and um, that's all I'm looking for. Let's just have a beer and talk a little bit. If we feel like it, we'll get something to eat. If not, no harm done.
Yeah,
That's it. That's all I'm looking for is to get out of the house and have a social engage and social interaction. That's it. And if you keep your expectations that low, that helps. If
yeah,
you're, and this would be advice I'd give guys, right, who are getting back into the dating market. Um, keep those eyes down. Know what the prize is. Know what you're looking for, but you can't be trying to get it day one. You can't win the Heisman at your first practice. You got to take some time and get out there and get comfortable with it.
yeah, absolutely. No, that's great advice, I think. And yeah, and you do that. You don't sacrifice that. I mean, I think people they get caught up a lot of times. And I hear this a lot from women. I don't know if it's as common with men, but there's a degree of it where it's like we put all these expectations. I want her to be like this and this and this and
Yep.
this, and a
Yeah.
lot of them are superfluous, right? So you're just like putting together this checklist. It's going to be really hard for you to find somebody that checks them all off. You're not looking for that. You're looking more for chemistry, a connection with
Yes.
somebody, a really deep, authentic connection. And when you
Yep.
feel like you see who they are, and they see who you are, and there's that attraction, now you're really onto something. That's kind of like, okay,
Hmm.
there might be something here. But otherwise, yeah, you're just you don't sacrifice that either for anything. And I think it's so
Mm-mm.
hard for people to um to be authentic when they're needy, when they feel like they need something, they're not healthy with themselves, right? Like it's almost impossible. And it's
Needy's ugly.
impossible to see the authenticity in somebody else when you're needy and in an unhealthy place.
Hmm.
And hence it goes back to what we're talking about like, yeah, if you really want to take dating seriously, and you should, I mean, we should all be trying to level up part of leveling up this character, this avatar, finding, the best version of it is to level up in these different aspects. And one of them is to find
Hmm.
meaningful relationships, particularly with a
Yes.
woman, that like the yin and the yang. But that's not your purpose. And when you can get to that point where you're looking for that from a healthy place, like, hey, yeah, it'd be great if I find the right person. I don't need that. Now you can find those authentic connections. You have a better chance at that. And in your case, it sounds like you just need more of a greater pull to draw from.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, man. And I do get set up a lot just because I am who I am, and I'm an over 6 foot tall guy. I'm not bad looking. I'm charismatic. All the things that I like about myself, thankfully, the world sort of appreciates as well. And where I live now, man, I stick out like a sore thumb. Um, no offense to people that I live with here. It's a great town. Very much enjoy everything I do, but a person with my background is very unusual where I live. So it's crazy. A lot of times I'll walk into public places and people already know who I am. A lot of times just because I'm new, right? That's a big part of it. And again, I stick out. Um, it's just it is what it is. So I do get set up a lot. I get a lot of people who want to, hey, you should meet my friend so and so, and I've got a set of parameters I'm trying to stick to here, Adam. And a lot of times it's, oh, well, she's 55 and she's got 3 kids. And I'm like, you know what? That's probably not going to work for me.
Yeah, yeah,
That's not really my wheelhouse. I learned a long time ago. For me, I don't have kids. I haven't had any luck dating anybody who already has children. I think there's a good dynamic when a man's a little bit older. I think that just kind of works, not all the time, but in general, there are some pieces there, right? So I often get set up with people and it's just not going to work. But, I always take it as a compliment when somebody does, when somebody says, hey, I think
yeah,
enough of you, I think highly enough of you that I want to put you together with this other person I think highly of. And what a tremendous compliment that is.
yeah,
And you
absolutely.
never know. You meet that person, sit down, that you might meet their sister, you might meet their cousin or this girl she works with. You never know. I mean, what's going to lead to what? So that is what it is. But yeah, whatever. Like you said, though, I live by myself. I like doing what I'm doing. I have a very fulfilling life, and I don't need it. I'd like it. I'd like to have a good woman around, but I don't need it right now. And that's fine. I mean, the summer's gonna get very busy. I don't have time to be dating. I'll be working from sun up till sundown, certainly through the spring. And it is what it is, man. It'll come around when it does, and I will want it when it does, right? You'll make adjustments. You'll fit that person into your life. You don't need to keep your life half open, right? You chase you chase the machine, you chase the purpose. You get out there and you kick ass, like you said. It's very attractive and it helps you in the meantime. Gee, you got something to do. You
Yeah,
can make money.
yeah,
It helps in every way. And that's advice I give guys as well. I mean, get on your grind. I mean, make money, lift weights, be having those conversations with yourself, with God, with anything you need to get yourself square and get yourself right. If you're doing those things, you're making yourself into a product that a good woman's going to want to have around. I made a post on Substack just the other day. I'm getting a lot of mileage out of Substack, by the way. I don't know if you're there yet.
I'm not
Um,
yet.
it's awesome, man. You take social media, you delete anybody under 30, and you delete anybody under about a 110 IQ. And it's like it's utopia as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I made a post the other day about that, about if you're a woman who wants XYZ in a man, well, these are the things that you need to be in order to attract that. If you want a man who's handy, can fix things, well, you probably should be able to cook. If you want a
Yep.
man who's athletic, you probably can't be obese. Like there's parallels there. A good man's going to have some things he wants from you. So focus on that. You got time right now. You're by yourself. So let's do this work and make yourself great. And it goes in both directions. It's men and women. Both of you can be doing things to make, like you and I said, I mean, it takes tremendous pride in who I am. You take tremendous pride in who you've created yourself into being. Why not make that as good as you can? It's harder to do that. It's harder to do that work when someone else is around because you got their opinion there all the time. And that's not always bad. It's not always good,
Mm.
right? So
It's
you
definitely
work
more
on
of a
yourself.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I like that concept. I talk about that a lot in my books too, about that other person, they're a mirror for you. Like you're going to see what you look like from their perspective. And this is a
Yes.
person you trust, love, admire.
Yes.
So that's valuable intel, man. That's extremely valuable intel about who you are and how what you do and how who you are affects others, which is great information to have. And we're not trying to go out there and make waves and piss everybody off. You know, make some people upset sometimes. That's life. That's good leadership. But mostly, you want to try to make people happy. I walk into a room, Adam, I want you to like me a little bit. I want you to admire me a little bit. That's what I want. And I want you to feel that way from me. I want you to feel like I like you and I admire you. Like that's a good human interaction. And you
Yeah.
don't get good at those until you get good at you. And that's also, again, that's what you focus on when you're single. And it's a beautiful pursuit, isn't it? Man, it's a
It
beautiful
really
pursuit.
is. It really is. And you hit a couple of things I think are really important. One is timing. You can't necessarily control the timing. Yeah, you can get out and date more. You can put in more work, so to speak, and maybe that accelerates it. But I'm really of the philosophy that you approach situations like dating where it's not like starting a business. Like we wear these different hats.
Mm-mm.
When you start a business, you go into the world and you go conquer it. And you have a strategy and a game plan and you go out there and you make it happen. And I know some people that do that with the dating world and maybe it's worked for them, maybe not. But I like the way that you're articulating. I think it's more like you just stay open to the opportunities. You do say yes to life. You say yes to
Mhm.
experiences. And when you're going out with a girl, you're not going out with her to see if she's your wife. Is she the future one? You're going
Yeah.
out with her to have a human experience, to look at a woman and interact with somebody. And there's always value in every experience that we have. Nothing is
Hmm.
wasted. And so if you can approach those dating experiences, even with a girl that you're not, isn't going to be somebody who's going to be a fit for you, but you get them to laugh. You give them a beautiful experience. You get
Yeah.
an opportunity to get to know somebody. And there's not the, oh, am I finding my wife? Oh, she's not. Now I'm in a crappy date and this whole experience sucks and I just need to get out of it as quick as I can. You can find a lot of value in just being present with people, whatever the
Mhm.
situations are. And like you said, they lead to other opportunities so often. So just that idea, like, hey, be in comfortable with who you are, find your love for yourself, and recognize that ultimately, that's the only validation you need is between yourself and God.
Yeah.
Everything else is icing on the cake. It's great. It's phenomenal to be in a healthy relationship. I love it. It gives me more vibrancy and it gives me more energy and focus than I've ever had in my entire life. But I would have been happy without it. Like I would have been in a
Mm-hmm.
happy, healthy place without it. And I was open to going out on a dating app because my buddy pressured me into it, and open to going on a date with this girl
Yeah.
and open to going on a second date with her. And now it's led to something that's just been an absolute awesome experience. But I recognize so much of it is just like this timing, and it was like the right timing for me. And so
Yeah.
when you look back on, even if the timing is 5 years from now or 10 years from now, when that time comes, you'll be like, this was the right time. There'll be a sense of
Yeah.
that because you on your purpose already, and you
Yeah.
haven't said no to stuff. You're open to anything, but you're not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily hunting or looking for it. You're not trying to force something like you can with business. I don't think you can force it with relationships or you get in trouble real quick because you'll get into relationships that aren't healthy. You'll miss red flags. You're going to be trying to hit the goal
Yeah.
instead of actually take the time to see if you're a good fit together and if it makes sense.
Yeah. The timing thing, man, it's huge. I used to hear this a lot. My mom used to say it that men get married when it's the right time. Women get married when it's the right person.
Hmm.
And I watched that happen in my own life, man. All right, I got graduated from college. I got a good job. I bought a house. It's time. And the girl I was dating, it was time. Like, so that
Yeah.
was, she wasn't the right person, right?
That
Um,
was my first marriage, man. I have to just say that. That was exact. You
yeah.
just articulated it better than I've ever articulated myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but man, I fell into the same trap so many men do. Obviously, you did as well. She was a lawyer, so you know how that ended. Not well for
Yeah.
me. But yeah, sorry to hear you went through that, man. I feel like that about anybody I hear who tells me that they got divorced. I often say this as well, that I wouldn't wish divorce on my ex-wife. Because it is, man. It's a terrible, dark thing. Anybody
Yeah.
who comes out like celebrating and popping champagne and they're lying.
Mhm.
Nobody comes out of a divorce and they're clean and happy and everything's great. It messes you up, dude, on all kinds of different levels. But here we are today talking about all the upsides and how great it can be. I'm going to see a buddy this weekend. His name's John. I remember him calling me at, he was 35. He's younger than I am. He was 35. He's like, man, I just got divorced. What am I, man? I'm 35 years old. What am I going to do, man? I'm way behind the game. And I'm going to see him this weekend. I'm going to remind him of this because he's got a beautiful son and a beautiful daughter with a new wife now. And his life is just going incredibly well. Got a great job. Everything's going well. I'm going to remind him of that conversation. Dude, do you remember that sitting there with me that night at that bar, talking about how down you were and how terrible you felt? And look at you now, dude. And I think he's probably 42, 43 now. He's not a whole lot older. And so that's what I'm trying to tell guys. That's what I'm hoping people who listen to this know. It doesn't matter how bad you think it was. It was bad. I believe you. Uh, but it will be great. The negative things, like you said, the bad relationship made you really appreciate the good one. I think in that appreciation, I mean, that's the finest gift a man can receive. It's the sauce that makes everything delicious, right? Appreciation is. So if you had to go through that in order to get to where you're going to be, it's worth every second, hey?
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen, brother.
Well, that's probably a good place to close, man. I've spent a lot of your time here. We're at over an hour. I will
Bro, I
cut
love
this
every
up.
second of it. It doesn't feel like it's a show. It feels like it's just a great conversation between friends, man. I appreciate the
Yeah.
authenticity that you bring to these conversations that we have, man. I really value them on a personal level.
You too, Adam, dude. You're a good dude. If you were around here, I'd invite you out for a beer right now. Let's go have one and
So
shoot the
we'd be
shit.
we'd be doing it every weekend, man. We'd go out and grab drinks, man. I do it with my homies here.
Hell yeah.
If you
Um,
ever
have you?
come out to Utah, we'll show you around, man.
Oh no, that's definitely going to happen. It's a place I've always wanted to see, and we'll figure that out. Have you gotten any? Did you notice? I should have asked you first, but I added you to that Instagram group. Kind of some heavy hitters in there. Is it?
I've read through a lot of it. My problem is like my bandwidth. I don't even look at my
That's
DMs right
okay,
now.
man. Don't feel
Gives
like you
me
need to do
anxiety.
anything. But
No, but I've read some the really good conversations. I've scrolled through it. I haven't looked at it in a couple of days, but I have gone through it and I'm listening to some of these guys. I don't know who any of them are. I'm just kind of seeing their profiles, but I'm like, dude, these are some heavy hitters, man. It's a good
yeah,
group. I need to chime in there because the stuff is the content in there, the conversations are top notch, I think, from what I've seen so far.
yeah, I'm gonna try to keep getting it going in that direction. My idea with it was we're all, and I got this from you, man. Very frankly, you said, "Hey, we're all doing the same thing. We all just have a different kind of style doing." And that thing is trying to make man be great at the man. If we can improve each other using those styles, if we can have that's all it is. That's the whole purpose of that group. Hey, we're all doing a great thing. Let's make sure that we're helping each other be as good as we can. That's it. That's